you want to volunteer, if you want to help in any way, boy, they could sure use it.
Yeah, they could.
Okay.
All right, everybody. It's time to get virtual. We're going to make a turn here. Our guy is in the house. Californians can choose, everybody, between 3 ways to vote in this year's November election. That's in person, dropping your ballot off in a county drop box, or you can send it in by mail. Now, Rick Adams joins us now in studio for a morning shot. The morning shot of Rick to tell us, to tell us how safe it is. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you, sir and madam. A pleasure to see you both.
Mademoiselle, please.
Mademoiselle, excuse me. Now I'm going to get a slap. Okay, well, the greatest thing about actually. Can we just
go
start
vote.
this? Roll the prompter. The greatest thing about modern times is how many things we can do without having to leave our homes. And voting by mail is one of them. Lately, there have been attempts to sully the image of this most freeing of democratic processes. And to put things straight, well, of course, I'm here to help you explain and help explain to you why you should put your trust in sending your ballot from home. Let's do it. Okay, so a pandemic certainly mucks things up when it comes to elections, but what's the reality? Over 3/4 of the entire US will be eligible to vote by mail for the presidential election. But there are still a few states that won't let you use a global life-ending pandemic as a serious enough excuse to absentee vote. How kind of them! Sorry, Mrs. Mailbox. Voting by mail is not a new thing. It's been available to us all for over a century. But when it comes to actually voting, America is pretty low on the turnout scale compared to the rest of the world. About 56% turnout in comparison to, say, one of President Trump's favorite countries, Norway, which is over 70%. Norway! Yes way! And mailing in your vote is likely to increase turnout considerably, maybe even up to Norway level. Another reason to mail in your vote? But what about safety and fraud? Well, firstly, you have to be registered to receive voting documentation, and that requires cross-checking details and social numbers so that by the time you get a ballot, you've been heavily checked to make sure it's going to the right person at the right place. Yep, that's me. Tampering with the ballots themselves is pretty tricky because of the paper they're printed on, and each ballot is mostly tracked with a unique barcoding system. It's very difficult to replicate even on a small scale. And stealing mail is a big deal, a federal crime. And anyway, it would be impossible to do it at the level needed to make an impact on the final result anyway. The states that have had mail-in voting for a long time have seen very little evidence of fraud at all, even Utah, a Republican stronghold. This is largely thanks to the highly trained election office workers who check that the signed envelopes and ballots match what they have on the electoral register, or it'll be done by computer. Almost every state requires the voters to sign the ballot's return envelope. In California, they will notify you if yours doesn't match what they have on file. Each state is responsible for their own election process, which is much more difficult to hack than, say, a singular, unified national online voting system. So paper leaves, well, a paper trail, and many experts in security say receipts are actually a good tracking system. I mean, just ask the IRS. And if mail-in voting's really that untrustworthy, do you think the most powerful person in the whole of America, nay the world, would do it himself if it wasn't? President Trump voted by mail in 2018. Washington state lets everyone vote by mail, but they've had years to get things up to speed, and it's undeniable that swapping an entire infrastructure to mail in is going to present some problems, not least of which volume and time. It will require considerable patience, but these are the times when we're all learning to be patient. I'll leave you with the words of Kim Wyman, Republican Secretary of State for Washington, who's overseen 5 presidential elections, no less. She says every one of us, whether we're a Democrat, Republican, or an independent, needs to be working toward making sure our democracy works. What's at stake right now is much greater than who wins the Oval Office. People could lose confidence in our elections. And if that happens, democracy's at stake.
That's Rick Adams in the house for us on this Wednesday morning. Rick, thank you. Okay, so let's just get right into this. Why are we at the bottom of the turnout table, the U.S.?
Did you just say the word bottom on live television? Okay, fair enough.
The derriere. Why are we at the derriere?
Sorry, I'm sorry. Look, the reason we're at the bottom, well, let's look at who's at the top. We've got Belgium, Sweden and Denmark in the 80 percentile range. And the reason for that is, in Belgium's case, it's compulsory voting, OK? So you have to vote, but it's not a naughty thing, it's a good thing. And if you take a look at a country like Chile, for instance, they started out with 80% compulsory voting, but the result was the turnout of 87%. And then when they removed compulsory voting, it dropped to 42%. And now we, as a nation, are in the 60 percentile range, compared to our neighbour of Canada, 91%. And the reason is because you have to register to vote. It's an individual responsibility. So if we were made to vote compulsorily, and again, a good thing, there'd be a larger turnout. So that's why. And also, turnout-wise, globally is down because, well, why is that? Possibly the lack of trust in a more polarised leadership that we're getting in governments all around the world, and people are losing faith
And
in
the funny
politicians.
thing is, we send voter security teams all across the world to third world countries to make sure their vote is democratic and safe and not fraudulent. And yet here, there's so much now doubt sewed into this process. Did the experts say that's, what do they say about that? Did they say it's safe?
Well, when it comes to mail-in voting, it is. And Stanford did a really good piece of work on statistics and analysis earlier this year. And they found that, to be honest, there isn't any polarising result from mail-in voting. It isn't actually going to favour one party over the other. It just increases turnout. So it really is in the favour of both parties to go towards mail-in voting, particularly during a major pandemic. It's obvious we need to be staying at home. And so when it comes to the parties, there may be one particular leader who is favouring the mistrust and sowing mistrust in this process because it may favour that party because less people will turn out and therefore the percentage swing will be bigger towards that party.
I think you've missed your calling. I think we have a political pundit here in the making. Mel and I keep saying, no matter what, this is a historic election year, and it is a privilege, it's a right and a duty to vote and get your voice heard. We can't say it enough. Make sure to register, make sure to get that vote in, no matter how you do it, right?
Amen.
Amen.
That's it.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks for taking
you,
it.
sir. No, thank you.
Okay, all right, I'll take it.
One Takeaway, brought to you by Morongo Casino Resort and Spa.